Well, it's Saturday, it's Memorial Day weekend. I got a call on a walk-in freezer out, and I get here and what I found was this Emerson control. It was tripping off on a PS, which means that the sensor on the suction line was acting up. Now this is a freezer. That suction line frosts up pretty seriously, and that electrical sensor is always under frost, and then it shuts off and it melts. It's constantly getting wet, and you have expansion, contraction. I'm sure something plastic cracked in it, whatever. But I don't have one of those, and I don't have one of those, so I'm going to go old school with it. This is the easiest and quickest and safest way for me right now to get this freezer running. I'm going to put a Ranco dual pressure control in, because that's all this unit is doing pretty much. I mean, it might show some pressures, but I think there's a sensor on it for high temperature, but other than that, it's I've got a dual pressure control for this. It'll sense the high pressure and low pressure, and this has a reset button on it. If the condenser plugs up with dust or the fans go out, that pressure builds up, it'll trip the button off, and I'll have to come and reset it and find the problem and fix it. But right now I'm removing the gas out of it. I'm pretty sure this is filled up. I got to move the hose over to that and then take the rest of the gas out. Okay, what I did was I'm going to install this Schrader fitting. It's a 3/8 fitting. I'm going to install it right here on the high side, my high side connector. What I do is I cut it, I cleaned it with the brush. Use my wheel. And I'm going to use Stay Still flux on it. Brushes always get funky like that. That's a good one, actually. Put a little bit on the outside because I want the braze to stick there. Halfway straight. I'm using my little MC tape, just a small 3/8 connection. It's Saturday, Memorial Day weekend. And to get this control, I had to make a panic drive all the way out to Valley View, which is a pretty good drive for me. I catch the supply house, the main headquarters, the branch. They're only open until noon. I got there, I wanted to get some refrigerant, completely out of 407C. I don't need it for this job, but it's another job. But they were so busy this morning, everybody was grabbing their refrigerator. draw up from the bottom. Probably could have used a bigger tip. With the smaller tip, the brake rod doesn't flow off too fast. You can build it up. Now since this connection is this way, I'm heating it up higher to draw the brazing rod up into the joint. Let's see what it looks like. That came up pretty smooth. Bottom. I don't think that's going to leak. Okay, this is my dual pressure control. On this side is my low function. This is the high function. And on top this is the reset. This will pop up and you can loosen this nut out, screw the screw in, and you can bypass pretty much this so it'll be automatically set then. But if there's a problem, I want to be able to find out what it is. I don't want it to keep resetting itself and cause damage to the compressor or something. So what I like to do is unwind these all the way. Got some Loctite. Then last times if I don't have the Loctite, I'll just use leak lock on it. Don't hold the threads. You get a little package with the screws in it. Two of the screws are little brass ones, which I'm going to put in right now so I don't lose them. on there, or a leak lock, either one, to keep the screws from vibrating out. You end up losing one. The thing's hanging on by one loose screw, you know. Now, this is common. See, I get this stuff on my fingers, and I don't like wear gloves. And if I use Bluetooth gauges, I get that all over my cell phone. I'll be going through cell phones every year. And they're not cheap.
Right over here. Thank you.
I leave my hook magnet against these fittings sometimes, and I'll magnetize them. Okay, let's go. 4 screws in it. It won't go anywhere now. This is my high side fitting. This is the high side. And what I like to do to help prevent vibration, make a tight circle. A screwdriver handle. I don't like these wires springing around everywhere, so they end up touching something and vibrating, and you end up with a hole in it. This, for me, has been the best way to do it. I used to put a little bead of silicone on the old semi-hermetic, like 5 horsepowers. They would vibrate a lot. Okay, see, it does a nice job. I'm a big fan of leak lock. Some people don't like it. I like it. It's a sealant. You can use nylon too. Just use it sparingly. You don't want it to get inside the fitting. As a redundant sealant, I put Teflon tape on my fittings on top of the leak lock, just because I don't like freon leaks. where I have to pay for the freon because it leaked out a week later, a month later. And it's my freon. Okay, so I've got my Teflon tape on it. Let's see. Okay, I have my leak lock and Teflon tape on it. I always shake it when I'm putting on so catch that first thread. You don't want to cross thread this stuff. And believe me, it happens. You always want to use your 7/16 wrench. I don't know if you can focus. It says 7/16 on it. You want to put it on the Schrader base. And you get your small adjustable. Get a good snug on it. And you develop a feel over the years where you're good. That should be good. Not touching anything. And it can take a little vibration because it's a spring. Okay, now this one's going to go over that way. Okay, I connected the electric to it. I put a VX connector on it so that the rubber cord wouldn't be vibrating against the sharp edge of the hole. And I tightened the VX connector up. And I put the two crimp-on connectors on it, and I ran the the rubber cord, and I have to hook it up on that end next. Okay, this is what I like to call a rat nest of wires, and if you work on them every week. I'm sure if I spend time, I can figure out where everything goes, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to disconnect it. You have things like it's a heater sensor for the condenser, and my high pressure function will take care of that function. And you have a number of other sensors. The sensor that went bad, let me see. This was plugged in. This was plugged into the suction line, and the suction line built up a good coating of frost on it, and this thing had frost in it, and this is low voltage. It doesn't look like it did any burning, but still had to have moisture in it all the time. I'm sure that wasn't good. And I'm sure some electrical engineers spent a lot of time designing this, but it just made my job harder. So I'm just, frankly, I like simpler is better. That's my philosophy. It's just easier to work on, and I don't have to study this thing to figure out how to set it. I mean, I believe you have to hold the set button and the arrow button down for 30 seconds to get into the menus, and then you have to figure out the menus. It's just too much trouble, Why don't they just put a temperature button and a maybe a defrost button, something like that? But I don't know. I'm sure it's a good control, but it's just too difficult to mess with. And this standard old school dual pressure control will take care of this very nicely, and I can get rid of this rat nest. And I'm going to start cutting it out now. Okay, I got it wired now. I got rid of this rat nest here. And this is how simple it is. You have L1 and L2 coming in. L1 and L2. This red wire goes from L1 terminal to the contactor coil in the back here. That's one feed to the coil. The other side of the coil comes out and goes through, this is my pressure control, makes contact in the pressure control, comes back and goes to L2. So you have a completed circuit, L1 to L2. And if a solenoid valve, the time clock's inside and initiates the solenoid valves for pump down, and it also, the temperature control initiates the solenoid valve for pump down, and the system will pump down, and when the pressure drops low enough, the pressure control will shut the compressor off. It's fairly simple. Now I got to put it together and start it up. It's very easy compared to all this mess. Look at this. Just a simple, basic temperature control. I did have to, the fans, I did have to hook up the fans. There was 2 wires from the condenser fans to that control. I'm going to have to get a high pressure fan control on that before this winter time. But the 2 wires for the fans, I just had to hook up on L2. They were hooked. One side was on L1 to the fans, and the other side goes to, T1 and T2 on the fans. And that's all I did was I just connected them to T2, so the fans, when the contactor pulls in, the fans have to go on. Okay, got it all buttoned up. We got the old control removed, and we went from this. See, I don't know, I just find that frustrating. I'm sure it's good electronics or whatever, but it's just frustrating. And then when one piece acts up, it's so hard, it's so difficult to troubleshoot it. It's difficult. This was the plug, the sensor that plugged into this unit, and it's mounted on this suction line, and you can see it's condensation on it already. But we went from that to good old school, the good old fashioned, been around forever, very reliable Ranco dual pressure control. And that little brass button on top there, over there, that little brass button, that's the safety reset. And if that pops up, that means it tripped off. And it'll trip off if the condenser fans quit on us, or the condenser gets plugged up with dirt and it just gets too hot in here. But my temperature's dropping. It was up to almost 40 degrees in there in the cooler, 30, 35, something like that. And now it's down below 20, so it's coming down. It'll be a while. This is 404A. I have 246 head pressure and 31, 32 pounds suction pressure. And my evaporator temp is 08, and it'll drop down to minus 10, minus 20 in that range there. And that's what we want. But that'll take hours. And this is a nice little scroll unit. That's about it for. Okay, guys, that's it for this one. Another one bites the dust.